The big banks are screwing us over yet again, and this time they're hitting us in the soda can. An investigation by the New York Times has revealed that big bank Goldman Sachs has crafted a sleazy business plan to exploit the pricing regulations of aluminum, and in turn makes billions of dollars off of American consumers. In a group of warehouses outside Detroit, Goldman Sachs stores thousands and thousands of pounds of customers' aluminum. Each day, a fleet of trucks moves around the bars of aluminum among the several warehouses, loading and unloading the bars, perhaps 2 or 3 times a day. This back-and-forth aluminum circus lengthens the storage time of the material, which adds millions of dollars every year to Goldman Sachs' bottom line. But while Goldman Sachs is profiting off this insanity, you and I, the American consumer, are being hit right where it hurts, in the wallet. And thanks to special exemptions granted by the Federal Reserve and weak regulations from Congress, Goldman Sachs' sleazy aluminum shuffle game is perfectly legal. Even worse, the manipulation of commodities pricing doesn't stop with aluminum. Big banks are making billions off everything we consume, from oil to coffee. Joining me now for more on this great fleecing of the American consumer is Richard Wolff, economist and author of numerous books, including his latest, Democracy at Work. Richard, welcome back.
Thank you, Tom. Glad to be here.
So, Dr. Wolff, how is Goldman Sachs pulling this thing off? Why are there not regulations that say that people who are engaged in commodities trades actually have to be counterparties to the trade? They actually have to be producers or consumers. I mean, that's why the commodities market was invented, was it not?
Yes, but you know, big businesses have huge hoards of profits, and their job is to make profits with their profits. So the banks decided some years ago to use their influence, and it's enormous, to get an exemption, a special pass from the Federal Reserve that's supposedly there to regulate them, in order to allow them to go into commodities, that is, to buy, to store, to trade in things like aluminum, copper, and a whole bunch of other materials. So the banks took advantage of this loophole, legal, to go in there with enormous amounts of money. And then they did what we used to call cornering the market. They are such a big player, they have so much wealth at their disposal, that they immediately become a major storer, a major trader of, in this case, aluminum for Goldman Sachs. Another big bank does it in copper, another one does it in other commodities, and they play whatever legal games they can to jack up the price so that they make a good profit off the money they're using to play in this game. Look, the banks brought us into this crisis in 2007. They have since paid billions of dollars in fines because they got caught mistelling their clients what the real story was, laundering illegal money, manipulating the LIBOR interest rate in London. I could go on. Why are we surprised if, when we allow them to go into yet other areas beyond finance, surprise, they're doing it again? They're doing what they know how to do. Push the limits of the law to do what's legal, and when that isn't enough, get an exemption, change a law, adjust a regulation, so they can make legal the endless grasping into their own hands, a penny here, a dollar there, and then we get the inequality of wealth and income that America is becoming the worst case of in the modern world.
Yeah, and a financialization of our economy, an economy that's based on, do you want fries with that, or hey, there's a $5 charge on your credit card for that. So Elizabeth Warren wants to reimpose Glass-Steagall. She's got this 2013 version of it. It's been 3 years since Congress passed Dodd-Frank. Is it even possible now, given how powerful these banks are? I understand from Senator Sanders, 6 banks now control an amount of cash equal to 65% of the U.S. GDP. Is it even politically possible to re-regulate these guys, or are we just going to have to wait for some sort of disaster to wake people up?
Well, I think that the answer is in your question. Most Americans know already that these big banks are in a position, as are large corporations outside of finance, to buy their way to the laws they need, the regulations they need, the politicians and others looking the other way as they need. Even if we regulate them over here, they move over there. And by the time we follow them over there, they have weakened or amended the regulation in the first place. After a certain amount of this game, you think the American people would realize if you want to stop this process, you're going to have to do much more basic change than another law, another regulation, just to have this game played again. And so for me, the stunning thing, and the thing I would want to leave with your audience, when you have this kind of behavior documented by every official agency, now by the New York Times last weekend with this news story of yet another scam, finally there ought to be a debate in the United States. How can we allow something as important as the basic commodities and the basic money we need to run an economy be held by private enterprises that substitute their own profitability for the social need? It's ridiculous, and it's long past time that we really face the question, couldn't we be better served if our banks and our other large corporations were reorganized so they really were responsible to the consumers they serve and the workers they employ, rather than the shareholders and investors who want them to be profit machines?
Yeah. Dr. Richard Wolff, in the minute and a half or so we have left, 12 million Americans are still unemployed, and you could probably double that number if you include underemployment or, working 2 and 3 jobs. Isn't it time Congress did something like a comprehensive jobs bill?
Absolutely. I mean, we have our own American history to remember here. In the 1930s, when the private sector, having been induced, having been begged, having been pressured by the politicians led by the President Roosevelt, when it didn't work, the private sector didn't employ people, just like it's not doing today, the president went on the radio and television and said, okay, if the private sector either cannot or will not hire the people, then it's me, the president, and the Congress, we have to do it. And between 1934 and 1941, they created and filled 12.5 million jobs. Of course we can do it. Of course we should do it. The only amazing thing is the control of the wealth that doesn't want the competition of full employment, doesn't want workers to be self-confident because they all have a job and so they can't be kicked around. They can prevent it, and the docile politicians have forgotten how American history teaches the practicality, the benefits of a public employment program. If you just tax these corporations halfway what ought to be done, the money would be there to do precisely that.